Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the story of, what if Naruto found himself on someone's bed? But before we start, please support for more amazing content. And consider subscribing to my channel, share this video with your friends, and now let's start the video. The smell of blood lurked everywhere. Dead ninjas' bodies lied on the ground. Konoha was a total hell. They were under attack from a group of ninjas who had been planning this day. They slowly made their way into the gate as Kakashi Hatake busted through the door of the Hokage's office. Tsunade, they have finally showed themselves, the new organization that we've been researching for 5 years. Kakashi panted as Tsunade's eyes opened with shock. Sakura, now a full-fledged medical ninja who was in the room as well, started to shake. What is the village's current condition? Tsunade questioned. Take a look yourself. Kakashi motioned to look out the window. Tsunade and Sakura both looked to see the village slowly being torn to pieces. Buildings had collapsed and others were burning. Tsunade cursed under her breath. Tsunade-sama, what should we do? Sakura asked, though deep inside she was scared herself. Tsunade thought for a long period of time with no ideas coming into mind. Tsunade, we need an order now. Kakashi slammed his hand on the table, which awoke Tsunade from her thoughts as she stood up abruptly. We're going to fight, of course. Order all squads out now. We need to push the people out of the village and protect everyone. Sakura, come with me. Kakashi spread the word and go get Jiraiya. Tsunade was prepared to jump out her window down to the ground below, with Sakura closely following her, and a person appeared in front of both of them. Tsunade looked up and released a sigh of relief. Jiraiya, you scared the shit out of me. Jiraiya smirked as his face once again became serious. Tsunade knew what that face usually meant. What info have you found out, Jiraiya? Seems like these people call themselves Akatsuki. Jiraiya continued on, some of which contain the once Konoha ninja Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame, formerly of the Village of the Mist. If we wish to stop them, now is the time, so let's go. Jiraiya jumped down onto the ground, who was quickly followed by Tsunade and Sakura as they ran into the village. They had to stay fast and quick so that they wouldn't get caught up in other things. Kakashi soon joined them after spreading the word. Kakashi then sensed something. Look out! His voice caused all of them to jump back onto the building behind them as a giant fireball had slammed into the ground they currently stood on. A figure landed beside them as he slowly looked up. We meet again, Hatake. Kakashi. The figure looked into Kakashi's eyes, revealed 2 Sharingans. Sakura started to tremble. Sasuke. No, this person's eyes are different, more sinister. Sakura quietly thought to herself. Kakashi smiled underneath his mask with confidence. Never thought you would show your face again, Uchiha Itachi. Kakashi pulled out a kunai to prepare himself. Sakura looked at Itachi. So this is the man that destroyed the Uchiha clan and made Sasuke miserable. Sakura also prepared herself when Tsunade placed a hand on her shoulder. Sakura looked up in confusion. You aren't at his level. Trust me, he has skills that would kill your mind. Tsunade and Jiraiya both stood in front of Sakura and beside Kakashi. The ground started to shake as a giant rush of water swept the Konoha ninja off the building and then crashing into ground. Sweden. Baku Sushoha. Kisame had been on the building beside them as he released his powerful water jutsu, knocked them to the ground as they looked up as Kisame landed beside Itachi. Seems like you know one of them. I'll leave that one to you then. Do you not know who I am? Jiraiya pronounced. I'm a Might Sannin, the Toad Master. Jiraiya. Itachi looked over at the old Sannin. We know who you are. But you prove no threat to us. Itachi scoffed. Kisame took out Samahata and pointed it toward Jiraiya. You'll be fun to kill. A Sannin should be a worthy challenge of my skill. Kisame laughed. Sakura's fist tightened as chakra started to surround her fist. Tsunade prepaid the same thing. There is no way we'll let you destroy this village, Sakura announced. Itachi and Kisame prepared themselves, as well as Jiraiya, Tsunade, Sakura, and Kakashi. They took their places. Right before they were to charge into battle, a strong voice called out. Itachi, Kisame, stop. A third figure slowly walked down the pass which held the Konoha ninjas. He stopped a few feet in front of them with the hat hiding his face and features. This person was slightly shorter than Itachi and Kisame, but his power could be sensed by everyone. So you must be the leader of this little gang. Tsunade proclaimed, and her muscles tensed. Seems like you'll die first then. The man then obed something out of his pocket and threw it in front of Tsunade's feet. Sakura looked down as his eyes widened. She bent down and picked the object up and looked at it more closely. This band, it's Naruto's. Sakura's voice was cracking as tears slowly started to build in her eyes. Her hands clutched the headband as she looked at the leader with hate. You killed Naruto, didn't you? Tsunade and Jiraiya had grabbed Sakura's arms so that she wouldn't run straight into combat. The leader just started to laugh as his head arose. What is so funny? Kakashi asked, with this leader pissing him off. Did you kill Naruto? Answer our question. The leader stopped laughing as a pair of deep red eyes shined were now visible. This gaze sent shock throughout Kakashi's, Jiraiya's, and Tsunade's body. The leader then gave a big smile which was one of pure evil. This then made everyone freeze and Sakura fall to her knees. Those eyes, the smile, everything about him brought only one person into their minds. Naruto. No, it can't be. Tears slowly ran down Sakura's face as everyone else stared in shock. The leader removed his hat. Though his hair had grown a darker shade, the face and the whiskers were still familiar. They looked in shock, but Naruto just chuckled. This made Sakura snap. She ran at Naruto and delivered a powerful smack to the face. This made Naruto take a step back as he glared at her with his rage building. Why, Naruto? Why did you do this? Sakura questioned him. Naruto just turned his head without an answer. Tears were streaming now her face from her emerald eyes as she grabbed his cloak's collar and shook him. I asked you a question. Now answer me. Suddenly a wind sound was heard as Kakashi charged toward Sakura and pushed her out of the way as Naruto jammed his palm into his former sensei's gut. Sakura watched in horror as the Rasengan Naruto had used tore into Kakashi's stomach as he was thrown back, but caught by Tsunade and Jiraiya. Kakashi, are you okay? Tsunade asked with a concerned tone in her voice, but the masked ninja did not reply. Jiraiya lifted up Kakashi's shirt to reveal an unbelievably deep bloody gash in the place of Kakashi's stomach. That wasn't a normal Rasengan. It was way different and much more powerful. Jiraiya looked at the wound closer as he kept thinking. His gaze then drifted to Naruto, whose face had a giant yet evil grin on his face. So Jiraiya, how do you like my new Rasengan? Naruto bragged. I call it my RR or Razor Rasengan. The swirling motion gets so intense that the edges becomes like sharp blades that dig into the flesh of one's skin. Naruto broke out into a sinister laugh. Itachi and Kisame watched the scene from above. HMPH, that kid gets a little too worked up sometimes. Kisame rubbed his forehead. Itachi turned around and started to walk away. Come Kisame. You don't want to be around for what the leader has in store next. Itachi jumped off his Kisame's side and looked at Naruto, who matched his gaze. It sent shivers down Kisame's spine as he jumped closely behind Itachi. Naruto then watched as Sakura ran over to Kakashi and started to heal his wounds to her best effort. Naruto took a step forward, which made Tsunade and Jiraiya to take stand in front of Kakashi and Sakura. I don't care if you are Naruto, I'll stop you by any means necessary. Jiraiya said as he prepared himself for combat. Naruto just stood then as he looked over at Tsunade. He could see the heartbreak in her eyes. The same look Sakura had in hers. Naruto sighed heavily as he made his signature hand sign. A clone appeared by his side as he placed his hand to the side and started to gather a great amount of power in his palm. His younger self would have needed 3 clones for this technique, but not anymore. The sound of wind started to fill the air as the once blue Rasengan turned into a dark purple Rasengan as it soon took the shape of a shuriken. He lifted his hand toward the air as it twirled in the palm of his hand. Tsunade and Jiraiya looked at each other, then nodded their head in unison. Fuden. Rasen Shuriken. The dark chakra shuriken spun in Naruto's palm faster and faster. As Tsunade and Jiraiya were quickly forming hand signs, Naruto saw their attempt and laughed even more. It's pointless. You shall die where you stand. A red chakra tail shot out from the back of Naruto's cloak as the chakra started to cover his body. The ground started to shake. The power from Naruto and the 2 Sanins was almost unbearable. Sakura knew what Jiraiya and Tsunade were planning to do. Sakura stood up and prepared for her task in this jutsu. Naruto lost control and laughed manically. Die. Naruto was about to release the powerful Rasengan when Tsunade and Jiraiya pronounced unleashed their jutsu. A powerful light blinded Naruto, which made him lose his balance and fall back as the Rasengan exploded in his hand, damaging it to the core. Bones of his were showing as the chakra rebuilt his skin in a matter of seconds. He saw a hole full of stars as his eyes widened. Sakura stood in front of it and smiled one last time at this older Naruto. Dark red eyes widened in fear as he charged at Sakura, screaming with rage. But it was too late as Sakura disappeared into the hole. Jiraiya and Tsunade soon dashed toward Naruto as he released a powerful blast of chakra from his body. Hat tore the ground apart and started to engulf the two Sannin, possibly ending their life. People's footsteps could be heard as they walked around the village, smiles on everyone's face as the peaceful aura was throughout the entire village. Slowly, 4 figures entered the village, with one of those figures supporting another. They made their way into the gates, being greeted by the guards as they continued their passage. Unlike the people of the village, their faces did not show signs of happiness. 2 of the figures' faces were those of frowns and frustration, another was face of concern, and the last with no real emotion at all. They all made their way toward the Hokage Tower as the blonde-haired figure continued to be carried as they reached the female Hokage's office and entered. "I'm assuming you didn't get the results you wanted?" Tsunade asked gently, trying not to put any more pressure on the ninjas. The blonde ninja looked down in shame, with the pink-haired Kunoichi looking at him with concern. The leader of the group slowly nodded as the blonde ninja lifted himself off him, releasing him from the support. The emotionless ninja just stood there. "We were unsuccessful, Tsunade-sama. He escaped along with Orochimaru, who we had an encounter with before we reached him." Yamato continued on. "There is also another issue I need to talk to you about." Yamato's gaze drew down to he blonde-haired ninja who continued to stare at the ground. Tsunade understood what Yamato was conveying as she nodded her head. The image of the 4-tailed beast that was attacking with full throttle flashed through pink-haired ninja's head as she looked at the blonde Naruto. Yamato looked down at the Kunoichi, who was worried about her comrade. "Naruto, Sakura, could you please excuse Yama? We need to discuss." Tsunade was interrupted by her student. "Master, I need to word with you as well." Sakura bowed her head as Tsunade nodded. Sai walked out with Naruto limping behind as Naruto turned his head. "Don't worry, Sakura. I'll keep my promise to you, no matter what." Naruto had a small smile upon his face as Sakura's emerald eyes slightly watered as she looked down with Naruto leaving the room. Sakura and Yamato looked at Tsunade with Shizune standing behind her. Tsunade looked over at Sakura and nodded her head. She wanted her to speak first for the reason of her and Yamato having a private conversation about the matter. "Master, last mission was unsuccessful. At one point, Naruto." Sakura stopped and then moved on. "I would like to make a request." Sakura gulped and continued. "I would like to request Naruto get removed from the team." All eyes were now locked on the Kunoichi with surprised looks as a small surprised gasp was heard from outside the door. "Sakura, what are you saying?" Tsunade was surprised by Sakura's request. Tsunade felt offended, feeling like a relative figure for Naruto. Hearing Sakura not wanting her on her team was saying that Sakura no longer wanted to work with Naruto and wanted to get rid of him. Naruto's temper is not the best, and with this recent mission, Sakura looked into Tsunade's eyes. "Naruto might lose control when we see Sasuke-kun again and kill him." Tsunade slammed her fist on the table with Sakura and Yamato taking a step back. The figure outside the door looked at the floor heartbroken. "I've done my saint for her. Guess that stupid promise wasn't enough." Naruto slowly limped out of the Hokage's tower where Sai was standing waiting for him. "Are you saying that you're worried about Naruto screwing things up?" Tsunade's anger grew. "And are you referring to being more worried about someone who left this village despite your pleas over someone who has been with you trying to get him back for you?" Tsunade glared at Sakura as Shizune tried to restrain Tsunade. Sakura slightly trembled. Sakura didn't mean what she said like that. Deep down, she was worried about Naruto. The room grew to silences. Naruto limped past Sai, who followed behind him. "Seems like no dick is a lot of power, huh?" Sai gave a fake smile as Naruto continued limping forward. Go away, I'm not in a good mood, Sai. Naruto didn't make any eye contact when he said this or bothered to stop and looked at the replacement. He just continued his way to his home. Sai slightly chuckled. Not in a good mood. That's too bad. How that's why you're going to be kicked off the team in the first place. Sai mocked as Naruto froze. Perhaps if you didn't rely on the demon and you were strong without it, you'd still be in it. Oh well, what can you expect from a pussy like you? Sai gave another fake smile as Naruto froze in place. Naruto's anger boiled inside of him. Well, Sai, something tells me you're gonna die, wanna know why? Naruto chuckled as red chakra filled his body. Sai released a sound of questioning. Naruto smirked. Simple, it's because Yamato isn't here to control me. The chakra exploded outwards. Naruto quickly turned, emitting a red chakra arm. Sai jumped in the air only to be met by another arm that grabbed his right arm. Sai struggled for freedom only to be smashed by the returning chakra hand that sent him flying back, leaving a piece of himself behind. Master, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it to protect Na. Sakura was interrupted midway as Yamato's eyes widened. Get down. Yamato pushed Sakura out of the way as Shizune pushed Tsunade to the floor as crash was heard, with a figure crashing through the window hitting the wall behind. Sai stood up after hitting the wall as he panting heavily with blood dripping from his stump of his once existing right arm. He coughed up blood and smirked. That pussy can't control his anger. Tsunade stood up. Sai, what the hell happened to you? Tsunade questions as he ran over to him. Sakura ran to Sai as well as both medical ninjas prepared to heal him, until a giant red arm gushed from the window at Sai with yelling accompanied with the hand. You can't escape me, you'll die here. Naruto's bloodlust had grown strong as well as the awakening of his darkness. Blood was covering a small section of the Hokage's room as Chi poured out of Sai's wound of his newly decapitated arm. Sakura and Tsunade kneeled by his side as the familiar voice yelled from outside. You can't escape me, you'll die here. Naruto's voice of H-aided roared from below on the ground as a giant red hand ripped through the air into the room toward Sai. Watch out, Tsunade yelled as she grabbed Sai as she jumped to the side with Sakura doing same with Shizune and Yamato ducking on the ground. The red hand smashed into the wall and grabbed close hold of it. Yamato looked at the hand as his teeth grinded together. Damn it, why Naruto? Why at a place like this? Yamato stood up, analyzing the situation quickly as Shizune and Tsunade, leaving Sai in Sakura's care temporarily, stood up. Slowly the red arm started to pull in its wielder as Naruto's hunched demon body stood on the windowsill on all fours. His eyes were of a blood red as his vision was locked on Sai. Everyone in the room stared at the demon-possessed comrade as he hunched there near the window quietly, with only the sound of his breathing filling the room. Tsunade began to speak out, but was quickly interrupted. Hey Sai, an evil sneer appeared on Naruto's face. You dropped something. Slowly, his red chakra tail was pulled into the room. His tail was wrapped tightly around something as it slowly went over to where Sai was sitting on the ground next to Sakura. Yamato placed his hands together to prepare for the worst, but Naruto placed his hand to the side in the direction of Yamato, a sign of no getting involved. Naruto's gaze slowly was directed at Yamato as Yamato started to tremble. Those eyes were not his normal demon eyes, but something more sinister. So sinister that it felt that the darkness within those eyes were constricting him from the inside. As if the Kyuubi's tails were wrapping around his heart, threatening to crush it if he did anything. The tail stopped right in front of Sai as Tsunade kept her guard to protect Sai and a now trembling Sakura. The tail unraveled itself as Sai's arm fell upon the floor before Sai with a kunai that had been previously held in that hand of his. Sai was breathing heavily as he looked upon the ground as he chuckled. I guess I was right. You really don't have any control, do you? Sai's fake smile was seen in Naruto's eyes. Tsunade quickly delivered a blow to the side of Sai's head, knocking him out. There was no reason to make matters worse. Naruto chuckled at Sai's punishment, but Sakura soon stood up as walked toward Naruto with her hair covering his eyes. Naruto's gaze shifted to Sakura as Yamato's heart was released from the Kyuubi's gaze. Sakura kept drawing closer to Naruto with no one saying a word. Shizune tried to stop Sakura, but was stopped by Tsunade, who walked over and laid a hand on her shoulder. Sakura was standing before her comrade, her friend she cared deeply for. Naruto's head slowly rose to make eye contact, but once he made eye contact, he saw crystal tears falling. G from Emerald Eyes as Sakura delivered a powerful smack to Naruto's face. Naruto's head was shifted to the left as he looked at the wall. Sakura, another smack was delivered to the other side of his face this time. One after another smacks were delivered to Naruto as Shizune, Tsunade, and Yamato stood watching, but not reacting. When the final smack was delivered, Naruto, whose demon Chalk Ra was slowly withdrawing within his body, looked at Sakura as she tried to hold in her cries. "You, idiot, what do you think you're doing?" Sakura angrily spoke at Naruto. Naruto just stared at Sakura with shocked eyes. "You hurt your own comrade, and by using Kyuubi you're hurting yourself too." Naruto slowly looked at the ground as Sakura continued crying. The thought of hurting a comrade cursed his very soul. Since this would be the second time he did so. Ever since he hurt Sakura, he promised himself he wouldn't use Kyuubi, but clearly he wasn't able to. Tears started to fall from Naruto's now sapphire eyes as his body trembled. Sakura looked at him as she reached out her hand. Naruto avoided the caring of Sakura as he jumped backwards out the window into the village below. Once on the ground he ran away from the Hokage tower, not toward any specific direction. "Naruto, wait!" Tsunade yelled out, but Naruto was no longer seen. Tsunade sighed as she turned her head toward Yamato. "Please go make sure he is all right. Something must be wrong with the seal for him to lose his temper that quickly." With that she motioned for Shizune as they both walked over to Sai and Tsunade started to repair his arm. Yamato nodded and headed toward the window, until he noticed the saddened pink-haired ninja. He patted her on her head. "I know I'm not Kakashi, nor should I try to act like him. But don't worry Sakura, everything will be alright." Yamato gave a confident smile as he jumped into the village below. Sakura smiled to herself as she looked deep into the village. "Naruto, I promise I'll check on you tomorrow." Sakura's thoughts were interrupted by the yelling of Tsunade as Sakura ran over to help with the medical process. The sun soon set, the sounds of the village dimmed down. And the people of the village were inside their homes, except for Naruto. He walked in the streets toward his home within the flickering village lights. His thoughts were clouded of ways of controlling the demon within himself. "Damn it, I made Sakura cry, she was only worried about me." Naruto stopped as he looked into Moon. "So that's why she wanted me of the team, so that I wouldn't hurt myself further." Naruto softly smiled to himself as he found his way to his apartment. He climbed the stairs toward his room as he pulled out his key and reached for the doorknob. Footsteps cool, DB heard slowly making their way toward Naruto. Naruto froze slightly as he looked into the darkness of both the left and the right. The footsteps stopped as Naruto pulled out a kunai to prepare for the worst. "Good evening." The mysterious voice was coming within the darkness. Naruto looked toward his right in the direction the voice was coming from. "Who are you?" Naruto demanded, but was caught off guard by the sudden crashing noise of the person falling to the ground. A sweat drop slid of Naruto's head. "What is with this guy? He tripped and he wasn't even walking." Naruto sighed to himself as he went for the doorknob again, not thinking the person was much of a threat to be bothered with. "Wait!" The person yelped as he stood up. Naruto turned his head toward the direction, again blinded by darkness. The person stood straight up. "I heard you have a problem with your inner demon, shall we say?" Naruto's eyes grew with shock. Someone knew about the Kyuubi residing within him. How was that possible? He didn't even recognize the voice. "Don't worry boy, I just want to assist with controlling your beast." The moonlight made things more clear for Naruto to make out a face, but to no avail. He only could see an orange spiral. "I just wanna help you boy." The voice came from the orange spiral. Naruto's body started to shake as he took a step back. The figure chuckled as he looked at the boy's fear. "I don't mean to frighten you, but if you don't listen to my offer, then I will have to get serious." The figure sighed as his body straightened up and took a step toward the blonde ninja. Naruto's mind couldn't think straight. Who is this guy, and how the hell does he know about Kyuubi? Naruto's thought as he pulled out a kunai. The figure stopped in his tracks as he looked at the weapon. "Stay back, I'm warning you." Naruto pointed the kunai at the man. The figure raised his arm and snapped. A pulse went through Naruto's body rooting from within him. His hand, not to his will, released the kunai as the clang of the material could be heard. His body, Naruto's body, was now in a state of paralysis. Naruto's fear grew so much that he couldn't even shake with fear, only hope for everything to end. The figure pointed toward the boy and lifted his finger as Naruto's head raised along with the motion of the finger. The figure walked toward Naruto as his appearance was now visible to the paralyzed ninja. The man was wearing an orange spiral mask and a black outfit that covered his entire body. The man stood in front of Naruto and lowered his finger so Naruto was looking directly at the mask. Must we make things difficult? The man chuckled as his other hand rubbed the back of his head. You willing to listen to my proposition, boy? The question was answered as Naruto spat on the mask. The man looked down on the ground. Well then, the man grabbed Naruto by his neck and threw him on the ground below with quick speed. Naruto blinked and the next thing he had seen was the upcoming ground. By extending his arms he landed in a handstand, but that was quickly interrupted by the man's fist delivering a powerful blow to Naruto's gut which sent Naruto backwards to soon be sprawling on the ground. The man jumped from his current location to beside Naruto as he put his foot on Naruto's chest. I really don't like to get serious with children like you. The mask's gaze dawned on Naruto as he looked up weakly. It would be in your best interest to listen, you worthless demon child. Naruto snapped and grabbed the man's leg viciously, but was interrupted when the man delivered a kick to the side of his head sending him rolling in the dirt. Blood was coughed upon the ground as Naruto got onto his knees and looked at the man. The man just street-oohed there as he looked upon the weakened ninja. Seems like you can't control your rage, can you? Having difficulties controlling your inner demon? The man raised his hand again pointing to the sky, but I can help you with that. The man snapped his fingers as a painful pulse ran from the seal on Naruto into his entire body. Slowly the Kyuubi's chakra was forcefully pushed into Naruto's chakra system. Naruto's old chakra was being replaced by the demon's chakra. A red veil formed around Naruto's body and made its way up toward his neck. Naruto was no longer in control. This man was controlling him, but how? A newfound anger was building inside of Naruto for no reason, but Naruto realized the same feeling from before. You, the boy began, you're the one that made me lose control on Sai. The man simply chuckled. True, Naruto had gone ballistic on Sai before, but usually it would have been something that he would the power to control. The figure was using him as a puppet to see the demon's potential. How much influence the Kyuubi had on the boy. The man moved his hand while the red chakra advancing up his body turned into a hand and grasped Naruto around his throat as he began to choke. Tears falling from his sky blue eyes, the feeling of his body disappearing, the loss of control, those things were slowly becoming a reality for Naruto. The man vanished and reappeared behind Naruto, grabbing him by the collar of his jacket and dragging him along as he walked toward a tree. He picked him up by the collar and hung him on a branch of a tree, dangling as Naruto's hands were occupied with trying to get the red chakra's grasp to be released from his neck. The man lifted the boy's head so that he was looking at him. The man covered the hole on his mask and slowly removed it, revealing the eye that controlled Kyuubi. Naruto's eyes widened, but suddenly everything went black. Darkness was all that he saw. Water could be heard dripping from pipes above. A drop hit Naruto, who was lying in the middle of a dark area resembling a sewer. Naruto slowly came to his senses as he stood up and looked around. This place, could it be? Growling noises came from an alleyway as Naruto slowly made his way toward the direction. His steps drew him closer and closer to his destination as he reached his goal and stood before the familiar gate locked with a seal. Well now, if it isn't my young container, a voice came from within the sealed gate as it shifted within. Naruto looked up and saw two giant fox eyes staring back at him. Finally decided to give your body to me. Shut up, fox. Hey, if not, then what brings you here? Last time I remember you didn't want my chakra. Don't think I'll let you have a lot now. Whatever, I don't even know how I got here in the first place. I brought you here. A hand was placed on Naruto's head as Naruto's head spun to look over his shoulder as he gazed upon the orange spiral mask. Hello again. Naruto's body started to tremble. Once again as he gritted his teeth for confidence and he went for a punch to the man's face. He ended up punching empty space. Naruto stumbled slightly to catch his footing as he heard laughing behind him as he turned to look at the man. Nice try boy, but maybe next time. Naruto, who is this guy? The fox demon spoke. If he isn't welcomed here, then maybe I can have him as a toy or a pet. He-Man looked at Kyuubi within the seal as his voice became serious. It's been a while Kyuubi, the man addressed the demon as he slowly made his way toward the gate. Naruto watched without making sound. Kyuubi snarled from behind the gate as his mighty 9 tails lashed out at the man. Naruto closed his eyes to prevent himself from witnessing the fatal blow that tail would deliver. He smirked to himself as well. Ha! Good job Fox. Naruto looked up only to see the man with his arm extended outwards with the tail stopped right in front of him. A sneer was heard as he sent the tail back as it whipped Kyuubi in the face, releasing a small whimper. The man walked inside of the gate as he looked up at the mighty beast. Kyuubi roared at his arrival and the pain inflicted to him just now. Who the hell do you think you are, mortal? Kyuubi's roar echoed loudly as he opened his wide jaw and went to engulf the man with one strike. The man removed one side of his mask, the side with the single hole, and opened his eye. Kyuubi's eyes opening in disbelief as his head was suddenly slammed to the ground. Kyuubi growled in frustration as the man put his mask back on fully and petted the Kyuubi on his snout. Good Fox. You now know your place. Damn you, Master. Naruto heard the word, Master, being uttered from Kyuubi's mouth. Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted. Now boy, do you see what I am capable of? The man asked the blonde. If you accept my offer, all of his power will become yours. The two of you will be intertwined. You shall become the ultimate ninja, unstoppable by anyone. Naruto just stood there as his body started to tremble again. The man sighed as he exited the gate and Kyuubi was released from the control of the man. Kyuubi stood up on all fours and then addressed Naruto. Kit, stay away from this man. Run away now. Kyuubi's words made Naruto take a step back as the man with the mask motioned his hand in a swipe motion as Kyuubi. I's head slammed against the gate, knocking him unconscious. Naruto had had enough as he dashed toward the gate. Kyuubi, are you alright? Naruto was stopped in place as the man quickly appeared before him. He grabbed Naruto by the neck again with more force this time. Think about my offer boy, and think about it very carefully. I just want to help, that's all. The man reached for the side of H's mask with the hole again as he began to slide the mask over. By the way, you can call me Toby. Toby opened his eye, the one that can control Kyuubi and the one that reminded Naruto what he had seen in the eye before. That's Sharingan, Naruto uttered as he screamed out as he leaned forward quickly, panting heavily. Sweat ran down his face as he continued to pant. He slowly took in his surroundings. He realized he was in his bed. In his own room. He stood up and looked in the mirror, noticing he was in his jumpsuit, but he didn't have any injuries nor was he in any pain. He wiped the sweat off his face as he sighed in relief. It was just a dream, but it seemed so real. He calmed himself down as he looked outside and noticing the daylight. Morning I should go check up on Sai in the hospital and apologize. Naruto changed into a t-shirt and some orange pants as he jumped outside and ran toward the hospital. He was being watched once more from a person above who was secretly standing on a rooftop above. Hey, don't worry Uzumaki Naruto, you shall soon see your true power that resides within you. A smile appeared under Toba's mask as he looked down on the blonde ninja ONC. More as Toby disappeared within a black dimension hole. Naruto was making his way to the hospital step by step as he looked at the ground while doing so. What am I going to say when I get there? Naruto thought to himself. Yes, the young blonde was going to apologize to his new teammate after the pain he had inflicted on him. His thoughts were also plagued from the mysterious man that appeared before him last night. Was it dream or reality? Naruto continued to walk to his destination as he tried to replay the events over and over in his head. The thing that plagued his memory the most was Hat the man was able to control the fox sealed within him like it was nothing. Could he actually be trying to help me control Kyuubi? No way. Besides, how does he even know of the Kyuubi sealed inside me? Naruto continued to ponder to himself until he walked into the arch of the hospital. Oh yeah, I came here to apologize to Sai. Naruto smiled sheepishly as he rubbed the back of his head and made his way in. He walked toward the front desk and felt a couple of gazes upon him that he couldn't shake off. Can I help you? The nurse asked at the desk in a very dull tone. She was filing her nails, not even paying attention to the blonde in front of her. She seems to be having a good day. Haha, Naruto's thought as he shook his head to clear the thoughts, then coughed to clear his throat and also attempt for the nurse to actually look up at him. I'm here to see my teammate Sai, Naruto began. Can you tell me what room he's in? The nurse looked up and gave him a dark look that sent a chill down his spine. She stood up and started to walk down a hallway as she motioned for Naruto to follow. Must be that time of the month for her. Naruto chuckled to himself, but was silenced by T. He glare the nurse gave him over her shoulder. After a few silent awkward moments, the nurse stopped in front of a door and opened it as Naruto followed. Mr. Sai, you have a visitor, the nurse said, as she stepped aside, revealing a Naruto with an embarrassed look on his face as he rubbed the back of his head. Sai picked his head up from the book he was reading and saw the blonde teammate. He gave one of his emotionless smiles as Naruto laughed slightly. The nurse walked out as she closed the door behind her as Naruto walked over to the chair that was next to Sai, bed. Naruto noticed Sai's arm was wrapped up tightly and in a sling. Naruto looked at his feet with the feeling of guilt as Sai stared at him with the same emotionless look. Damn it, I made it this far, but I have no idea what to say. Naruto's thoughts plagued his mind. Maybe I should just apologize and explain what happened. No, I doubt he's gonna understand that some creepy old trick-or-treater freak came earlier this year and said he could control the Kyuubi. Naruto tried to gulp down the dryness in his mouth as he couldn't think of anything to say. Silence filled the room like a heavy mist as neither one said one word. Sai then took it upon himself to break the silence as he opened his mouth. Naru. He was cut off as Naruto suddenly stood up and bowed his head. I'm sorry, Sai. Sai was caught off guard by T. His sudden apology that Naruto started to yell, I'm truly sorry for what I did to you and that I couldn't control my anger. Naruto was still bowing as he was panting from the long yelling of the Apol. OGY, which could probably have been heard throughout the entire hospital. Naruto's eyes were closed shut as his body was shaking, but his body relaxed from the small chuckle he heard. He leaned back up and saw a smile on Sai's face. Not one robbed of emotion, but one of forgiveness. Naruto sighed with relief. Talking to Sai would be way easier for him now. After Naruto laughed at himself for a while, he sat back down and talked to Sai for an amount of time as the subject went from the damage Naruto had dealt to the subject of the book the Sai was reading, which embarrassed Sai. After a few hours Naruto took a deep breath and then looked at Sai seriously. Hey Sai, say you met someone who offered you to control a special power that you had, like if he helped with your art talent and whatnot, would you accept it? Naruto asked. Sai looked at Naruto then cupped his chin with his hand as he thought about the question. That depends, Sai started. Do I happen to be already acquainted with this person? Well, let's say that he's not. Naruto laughed nervously. Sai looked at Naruto with eyes that seemed to read Naruto's very soul. Sai then turned his head as he laid back and looked at the ceiling above. I'm guessing this Naruto. If controlling something meant that gaining more power, then I suppose that'd be a good thing. Naruto started to nod his head at the response, but Sai continued on. But there is a price for power, you should know that by now from Sasuke. It all depends on you, Naruto. Sai turned his head to look at Naruto. How far are you willing to go for power? Naruto stared back speechless. He went to respond when the nurse walked back in. Visiting hours are over, you maybe come back at a later time, she stated as he grabbed Naruto by the back of his collar and dragged him out of the room. As Naruto struggled, he could only look back at Sai, who gave his usual smile and gave a wave goodbye. Naruto ended back in the streets of Konoha as he looked at the ground as he walked. Power. That single word rang throughout Naruto's head as he continued walking on the streets. Maybe I'll go visit the old hag, she might have a mission for me. Naruto chuckled to himself as he dashed for the Hokage Tower. Inside Tsunade's office, a group of enraged villagers were shouting at the Hokage as Sakura and Shizune stood on one of the sides of Tsunade. We want that monster out of here now. A man shouted as the rest of the group shouted in agreement. During the time of Naruto's attack on Sai, a few villagers had witnessed Naruto's act and it struck fear into their hearts. I don't want to lose my family by the hands of his demon child. An elderly woman shouted, waving her cane in the air. Tsunade rubbed her temples, trying to ease the frustration as the yelling didn't cease. I hear what you're saying, but please be rest assured, he is not as evil as you claim to be, and I will not tolerate you calling him a monster or a demon in front of me. Tsunade's taunted as Sakura and Shizune nodded in unison. The uproar became louder after disagreeing with the female Hokage, but a knock interrupted the argument. Naruto walked through the door as an aisle formed after the crowd of villagers opened up. Naruto looked around as he slowly made his way down the aisle as he received the cold stares he remembered oh so well from his childhood. He stopped right in front of the desk of the Hokage as he looked down at her. What's going on, Granny? Naruto asked, which caused Tsunade's eyebrow to twitch at how Naruto addressed her. Sakura put her face in her hand as she sighed. Naruto, I think you should leave. Now is not a good time. Shizune tried to reason with the blonde ninja. Naruto had a confused look on his face and tried to keep the conversation going, hoping to shake off the cold stares of those behind him. Slowly and as quiet as possible, a woman behind her reached into her purse. She then took a step into the aisle and started walking toward Naruto. Naruto sensed her presence and turned out, and he felt the woman slam into him from the front. Naruto was taken back at first, but then his eyes widened as a pain sensation rushed through this body. Tsunade, Sakura and Shizune all looked at the scene in front of them and then down at the ground near Naruto's feet. Naruto's blood dripped onto the ground below as the blade pierced through his skin. Thanks.